Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to be going over both portfolios, some changes I made, as well as the news from today's stream. All right, so if you want to be on the streams, I usually go live 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can hit that like and that subscribe and that notification bell to be alerted whenever I go live. All right, I also run a Discord community. If you're interested, the link will be in the description. All right, let's talk about today's news, and then we'll do a portfolio update. So Palantir stock was crashing all day today, right? It was down as far as 16% during the day. Again, really scary, really crappy because they had really good earnings. So what was causing this crash? Yahoo Finance published an article, and they believe that because during the earnings call, there was a report that there was a 10% decline in global sales, meaning outside of the United States, right? The international weakness is a concerning sign that calls into question Palantir's ability to continue its overall growth at the current pace. So I'm not a believer that Palantir is going to, continue having these declines. If anything, I think the adoption rate for Palantir is going to increase in the European markets. You have that huge NATO contract that they just won, and then it won't be long, in my opinion, before other markets like the Asian markets, South Korea, Japan, maybe even Australia, New Zealand, before they start adopting Palantir. Wherever the United States is operating their military or have partnerships, you can bet that Palantir is going to be a part of that. And not only that, commercially, in the EU, you have huge institutions that are starting to adopt Palantir as part of their ecosystem, as part of their workforce, right? So Palantir adoption is starting to amp up. I think as we move on into this year, we're going to see and continue to see more and more companies in the EU start to adopt Palantir, right? Companies in Germany, companies in France, or even companies in Italy or even the UK, right? I think there's going to be more adoption of this software. So I think that's a great tailwind. When Palantir was crashing, I was getting a lot of messages, like, are you cashing out or are you selling? Should we be worried? All this type of stuff. And I just sent everybody this video.
I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving.
So yes, I'm not leaving. I don't plan to sell out of Palantir anytime soon. I'm holding for the long term. All right. You guys know that I'm invested into PLTW, which is a Roundhill ETF for their weekly pay series for Palantir. All right. It is a 1.2x levered ETF. So what else is in the news? Well, Trump officials, Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, and the trade representative, Jameson Greer, will be meeting with their Chinese counterparts on trade and economic issues. Now, Scott Bessent doesn't expect that any trade agreements or negotiations will start here, but what this is a good sign that at least the two parties are coming to the table to talk about it. And the first thing that's going to be on the docket is probably de-escalating these tariffs, which is going to be a huge tailwind for the stock market. The stock market right now is driven by completely just by good news and good feelings and emotions. So anything that has to do with trade, any good news is going to be seen as a huge tailwind. So assuming we get good news from this, we can expect that the stock market is going to rally well into the week. But we also have the Federal Reserve having their part tomorrow for their FOMC meeting, and then Jerome Powell will be speaking 2:30 p.m. So we'll be covering that on this channel as well. All right, Supermicro was in the news, and they issued weak guidance citing economic uncertainty and tariff impacts. So Supermicro last week, they released a report basically revising their numbers. Their stock dropped. And then again, today after earnings, their stock dropped some more. So they are a company that is partnered with Nvidia, and they produce basically the hardware that integrates with Nvidia chips, right? And I am a strong believer that the only thing propping this company up is Nvidia. Without that partnership, this company would be falling. Supermicro, they have kind of a infamous history right now, but I don't suspect that this company is going to be increasing in share price value anytime soon, right? They have a lot of problems that they're dealing with. They can't ship things outside of the United States. And they're just dealing with a lot of uncertainty right now. So that is being reflected in their stock price. I like to cover Supermicro because, again, it gives us some insight into the data centers. It gives us some insight into what a huge manufacturer like Supermicro, who produces these server boards, are facing, right? From either consumers, data centers, or even companies that use their products. So again, they're having a little bit of trouble right now, and it's primarily due to economic uncertainty and tariff impacts. So who knows what that could mean for the data center segment. I don't think data centers are going to be impacted that much because there's other manufacturers out there that are doing just well. There's other semiconductor companies out there that are doing just well. Supermicro is not exactly a semiconductor company, but they do have a part in that. So AMD beats on earnings. AMD is a really great company. Again, I've covered them on this channel. I don't think that they're going to be able to overtake Nvidia by any means. I don't think that they're going to be the next Nvidia. They're just too far behind, but that doesn't mean that AMD is a bad company. That doesn't mean you can't make money with AMD. I think AMD and the CEO, Lisa Su, is fantastic. I think she's navigated the waters and navigated the markets very well, navigated the landscape very well, and created AMD what it is today. So I think AMD has room to grow. They're definitely taking market share away from Intel, and they're definitely just on a great trajectory for probably, honestly, either catching up or overtaking Intel, in my opinion. All right, we will see what happens these next couple of years with AMD. So shout out to anyone that's holding AMD. They beat on earnings, but because of the chip export restrictions to China, they're going to be taking a hit there. Nvidia and AMD are both in the same ship, or the same boat, really. They're both having the same problems. They cannot ship their chips to China, and that is causing some problems for them. But hopefully from these trade negotiations, these tariffs being lifted, and maybe the export controls being lifted, this will allow AMD, Nvidia to ship their chips, and this will be seen as huge tailwinds for both companies, and we can expect the stock to rise. If not, we can expect it to be, or continue to be, choppy this next quarter. So we'll see what happens. Nvidia was in the news. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang says being locked out of China's AR market would be a tremendous loss. And what he's referencing here is that the AI market in China is expected to reach $50 billion over the next 2 to 3 years. And if Nvidia, AMD are locked out of China, they can't export their chips there. This is going to be a real bad headwind for both of these companies, right? They're going to lose out on opportunity. With that being said, China's, domestic chip maker, one of them, Huawei, which is the most popular and the biggest one, I believe, they're going to have to step up to the plate to fill that void, and they will be able to profit. And not only that, they're going to be forced to innovate faster. They're going to be forced to perform their research and development, to create these chips to meet the demand much quicker. Right, that could be a problem for Nvidia, and that can certainly be a problem for AMD because they would lose market share, and they have a competitor that has finally caught up or even surpassed. I don't know if they're going to really surpass Nvidia, but it is always a possibility out there. Realty Income, for anyone who holds Realty Income, stock ticker O was in the news. They just had earnings, and they put 65% of their quarter 1 investments in Europe, right? They invested a lot of money into the European markets. We covered them on this channel before, that they are too big at this point. And the only way for them to make money and deliver shareholder value is by either through mergers and acquisitions of other portfolios, other REITs, or smaller companies, or they have to breach into new markets. And they are putting a lot of money into Europe. So this is a good sign for Realty Income. This is a tailwind for them. And if they continue to be responsible and disciplined with their money and invest in wise assets throughout the European market, then this is really going to deliver that shareholder value, right? This is going to be reflected in that share price. They're going to continue paying out a stable dividend. They are the monthly dividend paying company. So big shout out to anyone who holds Realty Income. I'm a big believer in the company, and I believe that their management is a good steward of my money. All right, let's hop into the portfolio update. So the only update here is that I bought 18 shares of CHPY. So CHPY is a yield max semiconductor portfolio option income ETF. I'm very bullish on the semiconductor space, and I think once these restrictions are lifted, that the semiconductor ETFs, the semiconductor sector is going to benefit greatly from this. So I've been buying CHPY. It pays weekly right? And I am expecting the next distribution update to come out, and I will cover that once it comes out. But yes, CHPY is a great ETF in my opinion. And I think it has room to grow. Right now, at this moment, I bought about 18 shares. Yes, 18 shares at $48.18 for $867. So that was the biggest change to this portfolio. That was the most recent buy. There's no changes to any of the positions here. I did get a really nice dividend from PLTW. Just so everyone is reminded, these Roundhill weekly pay ETFs are bullish instruments. If these have really bad weeks, the payout is going to be very bad, right? It's not going to be as high as it is now. Palantir had a really good week last week, and that's reflected in the dividend payout, right? The dividend payout for this week was, I believe, 60 cents a share. So I got $401 from this ETF for this week, right? Really good. If we look at NVW, which is another ETF from Roundhill, this one's for Nvidia. Nvidia had also a very good week. And if we look at how much they paid, I forget how much they paid per share, but I'm getting $271 in dividend income. All right. So total just between those two ETFs, I'm getting close to $700 in dividend income for the week. That is really good. So that is really it for the update. Any future buys, I'm probably going to lean on buying more CHPY. I like the semiconductor space. I think it has a great story behind it. I think once these trade restrictions lift, that CHPY is going to really, grow. And not only that, the dividend payouts that it's been paying out has been increasing over time. So at first it started with like 34 cents, then it was 36 cents, and now it's 60 cents a share. And it's predicted to be a lot higher this go around. I will cover it once it is released, right? So other than that, let's take a look at the M1 Finance portfolio. So this is the M1 Finance portfolio. This is where I hold a lot of my REITs and another ETF for tech and BDCs and a crypto ETF. Zero changes to the positions, zero new buys. Again, I'm kind of just letting this, roll with the waves. Whether we're going down or trending up, I'm just letting it ride out. And REITs have been doing really well. They've been recovering very well. Again, after pretty much Liberation Day, they got a huge wipeout, but they've been recovering very nicely. Same thing with VGT, which is the tech-focused ETF from Vanguard. This one has been recovering very well. Of course, we can see here during Liberation Day, we basically crashed hard, and it's been recovering very nicely. All right, so hopefully we get this back to all-time highs. Because again, I bought pretty much at an all-time high, and then that's when the market started crashing. So bad timing, but it is what it is. You deal with it and live and learn. So outside of that, that is the only changes to the portfolio, and that is the current news. Hope you guys enjoy this. Don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this content. Let me know down below if you made it this far. The word for the day is going to be REIT, REIT. All right, REIT. All right, are you invested in O? Do you like O? Do you like any other REITs? If you made it this far as well, you can also comment AMD if you're an AMD holder, or Palantir, PLTR if you're a Palantir holder. All right, with that being said, I also run a Discord like I mentioned. Link will be down below in the description. You all have a wonderful day. Take care.